Hello everyone, this is Tiffany Strong and this is my final presentation for Ed Leadership 6120. The title of my presentation is Every Leader Has a Beginning. When I started thinking about this project, I realized that leadership doesn't begin with a title. It begins long before anyone gives you a position. It begins through experiences, people, challenges, and the values that shape who you become. Northouse defines leadership as a process whereby an individual influences a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. As I reflect on that definition, I realized my leadership journey didn't begin when I became a special education director. It began years before that, and every experience along the way helped shape the leader I am still becoming. I'd like to start this presentation by showing you where that journey began. This picture is actually of my favorite class. I know teachers aren't supposed to have favorites, but if I'm being really honest, this group will always have a special place in my heart. Growing up, I loved playing school. Looking back, becoming a teacher probably wasn't a surprise to anyone. I started my career teaching 6th grade in Provo School District. After that, I moved to a charter school where I taught just about everything in the middle school level, from science to math to college and career awareness. Every experience challenged me in different ways and gave me a broader perspective of education. At that point in my career, I wasn't really thinking about becoming a school leader. I simply wanted to become the best teacher I could be. What I didn't know, that life was about to give me a completely different perspective on education. That perspective came from becoming a mom. This is my son, Max. When Max was 3 years old, he was diagnosed with autism and an intellectual disability. Like many parents, I attended my first IEP meeting wanting to advocate for my child. But I remember sitting at that table feeling so overwhelmed because I didn't understand the language everyone else was speaking. I wanted to have a seat at the table, not only as Max's mom, but as someone who could confidently participate in the conversations and advocate for him. That experience that day changed my life. It led me back to school to earn my master's degree in special education. Eventually, it led me into a special education administrator role, where I had the opportunity to work with students, families, teachers, and administrators every single day. Special education taught me something that continues to shape my leadership today. Leadership begins by understanding people before trying to solve problems. Stephen Covey wrote, "Seek first to understand, then be understood." That principle has become one of the foundations of how I lead. Whether I'm working with parents, teachers, or students, I try to understand their perspective before offering my own. Special education is a service. I've always felt that becoming a special education director allowed me to give back to the same community that helped my own family navigate an autism diagnosis. That experience shaped not only why I became a leader, but also the kind of leader I wanted to become in the future. Nelson Mandela said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." When I think about my own leadership style, I always come back to what I wanted as a teacher. I wanted transparency. I wanted a principal who admitted that they didn't know something, they were willing to learn about it alongside the staff. I wanted trust that went both ways. And I wanted authentic relationships where people felt respected and valued. Those experiences shaped the leader I try to be today. I believe leaders don't have to know everything. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to go out and find it. I think authenticity brings credibility, and trust is something that is earned over time through consistency and honesty. Those 4 ideas, transparency, continuous learning, trust, and authenticity, continue to guide the decisions I make every single day. But leadership isn't something you ever finish learning. One thing I've learned about myself is I genuinely love learning. I really like going to school. I don't ever want to become so comfortable that I stop growing. I actually really enjoy being challenged. I'm super competitive, but the person I'm really competing against is always myself. I want to keep learning. I want to keep growing. I want to be a better leader next year than I am today. I also never want to be the smartest person in the room. I want to surround myself with people who challenge my thinking, bring different experiences, and offer perspectives that I might not have considered. The best decisions happen when there are multiple seats at the table and people feel comfortable sharing those ideas. Leadership to me isn't about control. It's about empowering others and creating an environment where everyone contributes, because together we know far more than any one of us could ever know alone. I'd like to leave you with this one final thought before I continue. Northhouse writes, people want leaders to provide some direction and structure to their work and want to feel secure in what they are doing. They also want to actively participate in problem solving. I think that's exactly right. People don't want someone to solve every problem for them. They want a leader who creates clarity, builds trust, and gives them the opportunity to be a part of the solution. To me, that's what leadership looks like. It's not standing in front. It's creating an environment where people can do their very best work. It's having a seat at the table. So far, I've shared the beliefs that shape my leadership. Now I'd like to invite you into the environment where those beliefs come to life.
Welcome to ancient Egypt. Everything I've shared so far eventually led my family somewhere we never expected. Several years ago, our youngest son, Dexter, was really struggling in school. He had recently undergone brain surgery for a Chiari malformation, and he was also navigating autism, anxiety, DMD, and DMDD. We knew he needed something different. We weren't looking for an easier school. We were looking for the right school for Dexter. Like so many parents, we sat down at our computer and started Googling. I literally typed 2 words into Google, VR schools. Virtual Horizons Charter School appeared in the search results. We applied for Dexter. As we explored the website, we also noticed there were 2 job openings. One was for an art teacher, which was a perfect fit for my husband. The other was for a special education director. Stephen Covey wrote, "Private victory precedes public victory." For me, that quote means the experiences we have in our own personal lives shape the way we lead professionally. Becoming Max's mom, being Dexter's mom, walking through IEP meetings, experiencing uncertainty, learning to advocate for others, those weren't separate from my leadership journey. They were preparing me for it. Covey also reminds us that leadership is an extension of who you are, not simply a role you occupy. That quote describes exactly how I feel. I didn't become a different person when I became a special education director. I simply had a new opportunity to live out the values that I'd already been shaping for years. One thing I discovered at Virtual Horizons was another part of my leadership that I hadn't fully recognized before. I really enjoy building systems. I like creating, organizing, bringing clarity and structures that help both students and teachers be successful. The virtual environment gave me the opportunity to combine that strength with my passion for relationship and student-centered leadership. Instead of seeing systems and relationship as separate, I realized they actually support one another. Welcome to the moon. As I think about the leader I want to be, there are a few values that guide almost every decision I make. First, I believe every student is an individual. I also believe there has to be a place for a student who doesn't fit the traditional mold. That's one of the reasons Virtual Horizons means so much to me. We serve students who simply need a different pathway to be successful, and I believe every student deserves that opportunity. Another value I hold is that behavior always has a reason. Whether it's a student or an adult, I try to understand what's behind the behavior before reacting to it. And finally, I believe every single person comes to a school with a story that includes our students, teachers, and families. As a leader, we rarely know everything someone is carrying. When we choose empathy first, we build stronger relationships, we make better decisions, and we create schools where people feel seen and valued. Welcome everyone to Daegu Town. As I close, I keep coming back to one final thought. I don't see leadership as a destination. It's a lifelong commitment. One of my favorite quotes comes from Steve Prefontaine, who said, "To give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift." I've always loved that quote because I first learned it as a runner. Over the years, I've realized it applies just as much to leadership. Being my best doesn't mean having all the answers. It means continuing to learn. As I prepare for the upcoming school year as the new director of Virtual Horizons Charter School, my goal isn't to have all the answers. My goal is to continue learning. Leadership is a journey, and I'm excited for what lies ahead. Thank you for listening to my leadership journey, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.